Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. My boots were still muddy from the mountain trail, my backpack heavy on my shoulders. When I turned the corner and froze, a stranger's car sat in my driveway, its engine ticking like it had just arrived. Music thumped from inside my cabin, and laughter floated through the open windows. My heart pounded. I knew I had locked everything before leaving for the week. I dropped my pack slowly, every nerve buzzing. That's when the front door swung wide open. A teenage boy strutted out, chewing chips, wearing one of my old baseball caps backward on his head. He looked me dead in the eye, smirked, and said, "You're early." My blood boiled. Before I could reply, a woman in a red dress followed him out, holding a shiny set of keys like a prize. She was the type who walked like the ground owed her something. "Who are you?" I demanded, stepping closer. She tilted her chin, gave me a cold smile, and said, "Excuse me? I should be asking you that. This property is under HOA supervision now, and you don't look like you belong here." I almost laughed from the absurdity. "This is my home," I said firmly. But she waved her hand dismissively, already walking toward the porch like she owned it. "Not anymore. HOA rules apply to everyone. I'm in charge now." She slapped a crumpled piece of paper against my door. The word "evicted" scribbled across it in thick red ink. No stamp, no signature, nothing official about it. "Take your lies somewhere else," I snapped, my voice low. The boy laughed and kicked over my daughter's soccer ball, crushing it under his shoe. Rage burned inside me, but I held steady. The woman leaned in close, her perfume sickly sweet. "You've been violating our community standards. Wrong truck, wrong dock, even that ugly flagpole. Consider yourself done." She pointed at the American flag swaying above the cabin. My throat tightened. "That flag flew with me overseas," I muttered. She didn't care. Instead, she pulled out her phone, snapping pictures of everything. "We'll have this place cleared out by tonight," she sneered. A uniformed officer suddenly appeared by the dock, watching us quietly. She smiled wider, waving at him like an ally. "See, even law enforcement agrees. You're trespassing." The officer didn't speak, just looked between us. My hands itched to grab the paper and tear it up, but I forced myself to stay calm. She thought she had control. She thought I was powerless. But she had no idea who she was dealing with, or what proof I carried in my backpack. The woman strutted back onto my porch as if she had always lived there, her heels clacking on the wood I had sanded with my own hands. She held those stolen keys in the air, jangling them like some badge of authority. "From this moment forward, this property is under my supervision. The HOA board voted and you lost." Her words were sharp, rehearsed, dripping with false confidence. My jaw clenched. I knew my land wasn't even under any HOA, but she carried herself with the arrogance of someone who expected everyone to bow. I reached into my backpack slowly, the officer by the dock shifting as if he expected me to pull a weapon. Instead, I produced a heavy black folder, embossed with a seal that had protected me more times than I could count. "This land isn't yours," I said calmly. "It isn't even open to your so-called rules. This cabin is mine, granted through a veteran housing program and protected by federal law." Her smile faltered for a split second before snapping back like a mask. She laughed too loud, the sound brittle. "Forged papers. Do you think I haven't seen desperate squatters before?" Her son, still leaning against my gate, threw a chip bag onto the dirt and spit. "Mom, just call the tow truck. His junk's ruining the view." I gritted my teeth. That junk was my pickup, the same one that had hauled lumber and stone to rebuild this cabin when no one else lifted a hand. She turned, dialing quickly on her phone. "Yes, bring the truck. And make sure it's today," she said sweetly, glancing at me with smug satisfaction. Then raising her voice, she declared, "The HOA has the right to remove all violations immediately." I took a slow step closer, lowering my voice. "You're making a mistake you can't erase." But she only hissed back, "Dangerous man. Watch him carefully." "Officer." That word, dangerous, hung in the air like poison. The officer stiffened, his hand brushing his holster, but his eyes didn't match hers. He looked uncertain, studying the fake notice still taped to my door. I caught it, a flicker of doubt. That was my opening. "You think you've won because you showed up early," I said, lifting the folder slightly. "But I have proof. Every lie you just told is recorded." Gestured toward the ridge where my trail cameras sat hidden, their lenses quietly watching everything. She blinked, her confidence cracking for the first time. Then, without warning, she barked into her phone again. "Send backup, now. We've got a hostile trespasser pretending to be military. The words stabbed deeper than I expected. Pretending. My chest tightened, with the memory of sandstorms, the weight of gear, the flag folded in my locker. Pretending was the last thing I had ever done. I steadied my breath. Let her dig her own grave. The more noise she made, the clearer the truth would become. The sound of heavy tires crunching over gravel echoed down the road before I even saw the headlights. She smirked like a queen welcoming her army. Perfect timing, she whispered, straightening her red dress. A tow truck rumbled into view, followed by a second patrol car. My stomach dropped, but I didn't move. The teenage boy cheered, clapping his greasy hands together. Yes, get his junk out of here, Mom, finally. The officer who'd been standing by the dock shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure if he had just been tricked into helping or witnessing something illegal. The new officer, however, marched right up to me without hesitation. Sir, step away from the property. We've received reports you're trespassing and threatening residents. His tone was firm but lacked conviction, reports, not facts. I could almost hear her feeding him the script. Karen, because that's all she was. A perfect Karen crossed her arms and announced proudly, "This man broke into my home, officer. I found him sneaking around with a backpack full of fake documents. My son is terrified. We demand immediate removal." The boy faked a cough, muttering, "Yeah, I don't feel safe with him around." I almost laughed at the absurd performance, but instead I pulled out my phone and held it up. "You should know something before you write that report," I said. With a single tap, the screen lit up, displaying a live feed from the Ridge cameras. The image was clear. Karen using my keys to unlock my door while laughing. Her son marching in with bags of snacks, and the two of them lounging like they owned the place. The first officer leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, that's you on camera." Her face flushed crimson, but she snapped back quickly. "Deepfake!" Anyone can fake a video nowadays. She turned to the tow truck driver, waving her hand frantically. "Do your job. Haul it all away." But the driver hesitated, glancing at the officers. "Ma'am, if this man has proof, I'm not touching anything until the cops clear." She stomped, her heel so hard on my porch that it echoed across the lake. "You're all useless." The second officer stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Sir, do you have official ownership documents?" I met his eyes and slowly opened the black folder, revealing stamped federal papers and a deed with my name engraved across the top. His eyes widened just slightly before he stepped back. The officer who had asked about my documents raised a brow. "If that's a forgery, then it's a federal crime, which means this is above our pay grade." He radioed in quietly, his tone calm but urgent. Karen froze, realizing her game was slipping. Her son muttered, "Mom, maybe we should just go," but she snapped at him, "Shut up. I've got this." She didn't have it. Not anymore. The radio on the officer's shoulder crackled, and a calm but commanding voice came through. "Unit 3, hold position. Federal agents are en route. Do not escalate." That single sentence shifted the air, like a storm front rolling in. Karen froze, her nails digging into the fake eviction notice she'd slapped on my door. Her son's smirk finally faltered, and he took a small step back. But she refused to give up. "Federal agents, for him? Don't you see what he's doing? This is all theater. He's a squatter." Her voice cracked, the confidence slipping away as the tow truck quietly backed down the gravel drive. I kept my eyes on her, calm but sharp. "You picked the wrong man, lady. You thought I was powerless, but you never checked who I really am." My words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. The first officer, the one who had looked uncertain since the start, tilted his head as if he already suspected the truth. Karen scoffed, trying to recover her balance. "Oh, please. What are you going to tell us? That you're some kind of secret agent? Don't make me laugh." I didn't smile. I simply unzipped the smaller pocket of my backpack and placed a single badge in my palm, holding it up to the porch light. Her face drained of color the instant the silver gleam caught her eye. The teenage boy whispered, "Mom, that looks real?" The officers stiffened. One of them saluted out of instinct before catching himself, and that was enough to confirm what she already feared. "That's impossible," she muttered. "That can't be." But her words collapsed into silence as two black SUVs rolled down the narrow road, headlights cutting through the night. They stopped in perfect sync, doors swinging open as men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the scene. Karen's confidence finally cracked wide open. She stammered, This isn't what it looks like. He forged that. He tricked you." Her son tugged at her arm, whispering, "Mom, we need to leave." But she yanked her arm free, blinded by her own arrogance. "No, he's lying. He's not the owner. I'm with the HOA. I run this neighborhood." One of the federal agents stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting. "Ma'am, impersonating ownership, filing false police reports, and attempting unlawful eviction. Those are serious crimes. You should stop talking." She went pale, but her eyes darted wildly, looking for anyone to back her up. The officers stayed silent. Even her own son avoided her gaze. I let the silence drag before speaking again, each word deliberate. "You wanted to play queen of the neighborhood. You wanted to take everything from me, but now you've got the wrong fight on the wrong land." Her hands trembled, the keys she'd waved so proudly earlier now slipping between her fingers. For the first time since I returned, she looked small, weak, beaten. But I knew her type. She wasn't done yet, not until she tried one last desperate move. Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. The agents had her cornered. The cops weren't buying her story, and her own son was shrinking behind her. But instead of backing down, she snapped. "You're all fools," she shouted, clutching the keys tight in her fist. In one sharp motion, she bolted toward my cabin door, shoving past the officer who tried to stop her. "This is my property," she screamed, fumbling with the lock as if forcing herself inside would make her claim real. The teenage boy groaned, covering his face. "Mom, stop! You're embarrassing us." But she wasn't listening. Her red dress flashed in the porch light as she rammed the key into the door, trying to twist it open. The problem for her was simple. The keys didn't even fit. They weren't real. They were decorative blanks, the kind sold at hardware stores. She had staged the entire show. The officers started forward, but I raised a hand, stopping them. "Let her finish," I said, my voice low but steady. Karen froze at the sound of my tone, her hand still rattling the useless key in the lock. I stepped closer, my boots crunching on the wooden steps. "You thought you could take my life apart with fake papers and fake authority. But the only thing you've managed to unlock tonight," I leaned closer until she could see the cold truth in my eyes, "is your own downfall." She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. No, you don't understand." One of the federal agents cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, there is no HOA jurisdiction on this property. This land was exempt years ago under federal order." He pulled out a folded document from his case and handed it to the officers. "The deed is clear. This man is the rightful owner. You have no standing." Her son whispered again, this time with panic, "Mom, please, let's just leave." But she spun on him, her face twisted with fury. "Quiet, you don't know anything." "They can't touch me, I run this place." She turned back to me, her voice dropping into a hiss. "You think you're safe? You don't know the people I know. I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me." I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped another button. The security feed shifted, this time showing her earlier that week, sneaking around my dock at night, cutting my padlock, and unloading her son's boxes into my shed. The evidence was undeniable. The first officer shook his head in disbelief. "She planned this. She tried to move in before you even came back." Karen staggered back as though the footage had physically hit her. Her son's voice cracked. "Mom, you lied to me? You said this place was ours." The boy's betrayal was louder than any accusation. Her own family had turned against her. For the first time, Karen didn't have a comeback. Just silence, and the sound of approaching sirens echoing off the mountains. The blue and red lights painted the lake in flashes, bouncing off the calm water as the real police cruisers pulled up the gravel road. The fake authority Karen had tried to wave around moments earlier was about to collapse under the weight of the real thing. She stood frozen on my porch, still clutching those useless keys, her breath sharp and shallow. Her son slowly backed away from her, as if realizing for the first time just how far she had gone. Two uniformed deputies stepped out of the patrol cars, their radios crackling. They glanced at the federal agents, then at me and finally at Karen, who looked like a queen caught without her crown. "What's going on here?" one officer asked firmly. Karen's voice shot out before anyone else could speak. "Finally. Arrest him, he's trespassing on my property." She pointed at me with a shaking hand, her voice cracking under the weight of her own desperation. The deputy looked her up and down, then turned to the federal agent standing calmly at my side. The agent handed over the folder, speaking with absolute authority. This land belongs to him. He has the original deed and government exemption documents. What she's done is illegal trespassing, attempted fraud, and impersonation. The deputy scanned the papers quickly, then raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, do you have any proof that this property is yours? Her lips trembled. She tried to hold her ground, but the son's quiet voice betrayed her. She told me it was ours. She made me move in. She said no one would stop us. His words sliced through the night, cutting away her last layer of lies. The crowd of neighbors that had begun gathering near the road gasped. Phones lifted, recording every second of her downfall. Karen's face flushed red as she realized the world wasn't siding with her anymore. It was documenting her shame. She stammered, "He's lying. He's not my son. He's... But the boy shouted, "Stop, Mom, just stop. Everyone can see what you did." Tears welled in his eyes, but his voice carried with a strength that surprised even me. The deputies didn't waste more time. One of them stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm placing you under arrest for trespassing and for presenting false authority. Put the keys down and step back." Her eyes went wild, darting around for an escape. For a second, I thought she might actually run into the woods. But the agent beside me spoke sharply. "Don't make this harder. You've already dug yourself deep enough." Karen dropped the keys with a metallic clatter on the porch. The sound echoed like a gavel sealing her fate. As the deputies moved to cuff her, she spat one last desperate line at me. "This isn't over. People like you don't win. People like me always come back." I stared at her, calm and unshaken. "Not this time," I said quietly, but loud enough for every phone recording to catch. The handcuffs clicked shut. The crowd erupted in whispers, and for the first time all night I could breathe. The crowd at the lakeside had doubled by now, neighbors spilling out from their porches, boaters pulling closer to the dock just to watch. Cameras flashed, phones were raised, and whispers rippled like fire through dry grass. Everyone had seen Karen parade herself around for years, acting like she owned every inch of this community. And now they were finally watching her fall. As the deputies guided her down the steps in handcuffs, she thrashed and barked at anyone who dared to look. "Don't you film me! This is harassment. I'll sue every single one of you." Her voice cracked, but the recordings didn't stop. If anything, they multiplied. Her son trailed behind in silence, his head bowed, shame radiating off him. For a moment, I almost pitied the boy. He hadn't asked for this, yet he was dragged into her storm. But then I remembered how easily they had slipped into my cabin, how casually he had made himself at home. He wasn't innocent, but he was learning a painful truth right in front of everyone. The lead deputy turned toward me, his expression softer. "Sir, do you want to press charges for trespassing and property damage?" Before I could answer, the federal agent interjected, his tone sharp. "Not just trespassing. She violated federal exemption orders. That's impersonation of authority and interference with protected property." His words hung heavy in the air. The crowd gasped. Karen froze mid-step, realizing this wasn't going to be some slap on the wrist. I locked eyes with her. "You wanted to ruin my life with fake power," I said steadily. "But tonight the truth ruined you." Her face twisted, but the deputies kept her moving. One neighbor shouted from the road, "About time someone stood up to her." Another yelled, "She tried this on me too." The voices grew louder, a wave of stories pouring out, exposing years of her petty rule. Karen snapped, lunging against the cuffs, her voice screeching. "You're all liars! I built this neighborhood. I made you people." But the crowd only laughed. The deputies loaded her into the cruiser, but the cameras didn't stop rolling. One man streamed live, narrating every second. "This is the end of the so-called HO Queen. Guess the crown doesn't fit anymore." His words stung, louder than any handcuff. The boy finally spoke, his voice trembling. "I just wanted a place to feel safe. I didn't know it would end like this." I took a slow breath and looked at him. "Safety doesn't come from stealing someone else's home," I said gently. "It comes from truth. Maybe this is your chance to find it." He didn't answer, he just turned away, ashamed. As the cruiser door slammed shut, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Justice had arrived, not with fists, but with proof, law, and undeniable truth. And the best part? Everyone had seen it happen. The police cruisers pulled away, their lights fading into the distance, but the echoes of the night lingered on the lake. Neighbors stayed clustered near the road, still buzzing, still filming, still replaying the moment justice was served. For years, they had lived under Karen's shadow, tolerating her fake notices, her bossy demands, her endless threats. Tonight, they watched that shadow collapse in real time. I stood on my porch, finally alone, breathing in the cold mountain air. The cabin lights reflected off the calm water, and for the first time in months, the place actually felt like mine again, not just a structure with walls and locks, but a home earned, protected, and defended. My chest rose with pride, not because Karen was gone, but because the truth had won. The federal agent walked over, his footsteps steady on the wooden boards. He placed the folder with the deed back in my hand. "She won't be bothering you again," he said. His voice was calm but final. I nodded, gripping the papers tighter than ever. "This land is my family's blood," I replied. "I didn't fight for this country just to let someone take it with a fake piece of paper." His eyes met mine, and he gave the smallest nod of respect before leaving with his team. Behind me, the boy lingered for a moment, torn between shame and anger. "She told me we could start over here," he muttered, almost to himself. I looked at him, seeing not a villain but a kid trapped in someone else's war. "You still can," I told him, "but you'll have to do it the right way." He lowered his head and walked off, leaving me with the silence of the lake. The crowd slowly dispersed, but not before one neighbor shouted across the road, "You showed us all tonight you can't bully people forever." Another chimed in. Finally, someone stood their ground. Their voices carried with a sense of freedom, a reminder that standing firm wasn't just for me but for all of them too. As the last boat drifted away and the night returned to its stillness, I sat on the porch steps staring out at the dark horizon. My hands were steady, my heart calm. Justice had come without violence, without revenge. It came through truth, patience, and the law. And deep inside, I felt something larger than victory. It was a reminder of why people like me fought, why families like mine endured, and why this land mattered so much, not just for me, but for every person who believed in freedom and the right to protect what's theirs. I whispered into the night, letting the words float over the lake. "No one tells me I can't live in my own home. Not today, not ever." The mountains held the echo like a promise, and this time it was mine to keep. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.